All right, everyone, we're back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Eben Cathy's with us with the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition. We're talking about the Supreme Court decision last week to kind of not do anything on a 4-4 vote with regard to what the president had in mind about allowing some undocumented immigrants here to get some relief, to be able to stay here and not be on a priority list for deportation. So now we're back at square one, seeing what's going to happen on this case that happens here. And we've got some phone calls here, but Eben, just as it stands now, when will that case be heard? Do we know now as the injunction remains in place?
Yeah,
and where is that out of? It's out of
the Fifth Circuit Court.
Okay, out of where though? What the case is?
I'm assuming that the area is somewhere around the original lawsuit was Texas versus the United States.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah. So that, but there's not. Is there a timetable? As this
it's unclear. I'm not sure. Okay. I do know that it'd probably take a long time for that case to make its way all the way back through the judicial system.
So we're status quo, and as long as that's taking the injunction clearly for now is going to stay in place, which means that the deportations, clearly there's no relief for them, and they continue as we speak.
Right.
Let's take some calls. Let's go to Joe. Joe, go ahead. What's on your mind?
Just listening to your comments here this morning.
Sure.
I was wondering, a little bit confused. The Boston bombers, the 9/11 folks, they were all in this country either on visas or illegally, and I'm a little bit confused about, I don't know of any other country in the world that has a more lenient immigration system than the United States. Look like to me it'd be better just to change the law and say, they're spending $1 million a day down there on the borders trying to keep people out. Why not just open the borders up and say, we're just going to, let everybody come in that wants to come in. I don't understand if it's change the law and say it's not illegal to come in this country. Just walk over and come on in, and we'll take care of it when you get here. And why does having children in the United States override breaking the law to be here to begin with?
Okay.
Comments on that.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Yeah.
Yeah. One part I agree with Joe is change the law. Yes, we should change the laws. And I don't think having no laws is the solution. But I do think it's incumbent upon Congress to find a way to create an immigration system that meets the needs of our economy and our nation.
And the security, because I don't think anyone is advocating just opening up the borders and just saying just come on in. That would be a bad idea. I would love it if we could do that, but especially in this day and age, you need to kind of monitor it like most countries do. I can't just move to Denmark and just settle in there and become a citizen like that, right? All right. So some of that. All right. But what about the issue about taking into account whether there are parents that have had children here, and that maybe gives them some extra consideration?
It's a good point. I think that having U.S. citizen kids here demonstrates that you have deep ties to this community.
That you're going to be more committed to working hard and trying to succeed here.
So I think we have to look at it, in its totality. What do we lose if a mom or a dad is taken away from their kids, taken away from their job, taken away from their church, taken away from their local economy and moved somewhere else where they really don't have deep ties to? I think we lose when we do that to people. And we're doing that right now. We are deporting people who have deep ties to the community. The kids piece of that, I think, is it demonstrates that these folks have families, they live, they work here, they want an opportunity to stay here. So I think that's why the president probably chose to, at this moment in time, focus on the parents of U.S. citizen kids. And to Joe's point a little more, that's 5 million people. There are 11 million people in the United States who are undocumented. And I think that we should have a policy that addresses everybody, not just the folks with kids. So I agree with Joe on that piece as well. It shouldn't be just about this one group of people. We need something that's going to give folks who want to stay, who are contributing, a way to get on the books.
Yeah, it does seem to me that would be one indicator. And the part of that in the big picture, and I guess you say there have been cases, is the children that are born here, for whatever reason it is, I feel sorry. Can you imagine all of a sudden you're waiting for mom and dad to come home and they don't because they've been deported? And I don't know how old or how many cases of that have happened, but you say it's happened in some instances.
For sure.
And I do sympathize with any child that would go through something like that. Let's go to Brian. Hi, Brian.
Good morning.
Good morning, Brian. Go ahead.
Yeah, the open border thing. I remember about 20 years ago saying to somebody, I said, listen, they're going to fool with this. open up the borders, all of North America. If you do that, though, you have to open up the border between the United States and Canada, where we can walk back and forth there whenever we want to. Also, the southern border of Mexico with Guatemala, that's where the Mexican army, that's where Mexico keeps their army. So their border policies are a lot stricter, or are as strict as ours on their southern border. So that's a bit hypocritical. Point number two, I don't know who your guest is, this guy. He said that what the president did, this executive action, is totally legal. Well, I don't even know if that's really actually a statement. It's an executive action. Whether or not it's legal or illegal is a moot point. It was an incorrect executive action, and the courts saw it thusly. If the courts had agreed with him, then it would be legal.
Well, the trick here is, and I think what you said is that I hear you. No, you're right. I think what you were saying wasn't necessarily. You may believe it's legal what he's done, but you were saying there are other presidents have done similar actions in the past, and it's worked. But we don't know yet, and you're absolutely right. I mean, that's where this legal challenge is happening. There's an injunction, and the courts haven't ruled on whether or not that's the case. Is that my understanding of that? I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't want him to do that. But that's kind of where it stands. You were saying that there have been other presidents that have taken similar executive actions that have stood. But this one's being challenged, and you're right. You're right. The courts will decide on that, Brian, but go ahead.
You know, I mean, Ronald Reagan, granted a deferred action to, I believe, well over a million people. Okay. So presidents have done this before in a very similar vein. The 4-4 ruling at the Supreme Court does not set a precedent. So it didn't actually say whether the president was right or wrong in what he did, legal or not legal. It said that it's going to go back down to the lower court. The injunction will remain until the case is resolved, and we'll see where it goes from there. So DAPA is still being decided in the courts. And again, the 4-4 ruling basically kicks the can down the road a little bit. It says that we're not going to decide on this right now. We're not going to set any long-standing precedent that will say whether or not this was within the president's authority. This was on the block of the program while that's being decided in the courts. All right, let's go next to Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Nick.
Good morning.
I got 2 points I want to make.
Okay.
I've got 2 neighbors. The one next door to me is legal. He couldn't even go home when his mother died because it would have messed up his becoming a U.S. citizen. The one across the street is not. And he has had 5 kids while in the U.S. Deporting him and his kids, I've watched the kids grow up. I would hate to see it, but let them go back. I'm sorry. Now, go back to the 20s and 30s when they had a family sponsor them. They had families that would sponsor another family when they come over from the old country. They are a drain on the U.S. economy. They get food stamps, they get welfare, and all of that. Now, we need to take care of our own people first. Let them they have so much deep ties to the families and the community. Let the community and their families take care of them and feed them and everything and get them jobs.
Okay. Well, I mean, the 5 million that the president seemed to focus on don't strike me as the ones necessarily, if there are some, who are collecting these entitlements or whatever, right? They're the ones working. I mean, talk about the draw on resources, because her point of view is what a lot of Americans will voice is, they're drawing and we need to take care of those who are here legally first.
Yeah. That's a common myth. It's easy to say, but if you think about it just a little bit, I think you'll realize that folks who are undocumented, the last place they ever want to go is to the government. If you're worried about being deported, why would you try to go get food stamps from the local office at your state? That doesn't make sense. People who are undocumented and who don't have Social Security numbers have no access to any benefits And to try and go get those benefits at the risk of deportation doesn't really make any sense. That would be far too dangerous to do. So I just think, it's a long-standing myth, but undocumented folks, they're paying taxes, they're paying sales tax, they're paying tax on gas in other states, they're paying property taxes when they rent a home. They don't realize those benefits. We do. And if you look at the numbers, immigrants are good for our economy. And if you look at the numbers for passing immigration reform or for this program, DAPA, getting people on the books, helping people who want to contribute do so fully with good jobs where they can compete and join our workforce and do the best they can, it's great for our economy. And I think that's across the books. One thing I want to mention too, the caller, she has somebody who lives beside her who she says is here legally and a person across the street with children, and that family is undocumented. The person beside her couldn't go home to visit their mother, who is dying. I mean, to me, that's a red flag that something's wrong with our immigration system. If this man wants to go home and visit his dying mother and can't because it's going to mess up his
And yet he's here
status.
legally, but there was some reason he couldn't leave. Okay.
So that's an indicator that there is something very wrong with our process, right? So aside from the 11 million people, the guy beside her can't go visit his dying mother. That's wrong. The person across the street from her, the undocumented person who has 5 kids, if he has 5 kids, he's probably working a lot. He's taking care of his kids. His kids are probably U.S. citizens. They go to schools here. They're growing up here. They are Americans. And I can't, I would never say, I can't advocate for separating that family, right? So the U.S. citizen kids who are here and their father's working hard, sending him somewhere else. The problem is our immigration system. It's not the man across the street from this woman. That man wants to be here. He's working hard. He wants an opportunity to help raise his kids in a place where he can make the most of himself. That's what this country is about. And I think when we get away from that, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We are a nation of immigrants. It makes us strong. It makes our economy strong, our culture strong and vibrant. We've got to find a way to fix our policies.
All right, let's take a break on that note, shall we? When we do, come back. We've got more calls for you. How about that? We'll be back with more. Stay with us on Morning Line as we talk immigration right after this.
This is